The shotgun blast echoed across the frost-kissed fields of rural Illinois, shattering the morning silence like a heart under boot heel. Jack Harlan froze mid-step on the gravel path to the old barn, his breath catching in the November chill, convinced for a split second that the world had ended right there in his grandfather's backyard. But it was just Earl Harlan, ancient and unyielding as the rusted John Deere he'd been tinkering with, firing a warning shot at a flock of starlings terrorizing the corn silo, nothing more than farm life's brutal poetry. Jack's pulse hammered anyway, a prelude to the storm brewing inside him, the one no bullet could outrun. He was 28, broad-shouldered from years of hauling hay bales and fixing fences, with calloused hands that still smelled faintly of motor oil and earth. Jack had come home to Willow Creek after a decade in Chicago, chasing a ghost of a life he'd built and lost in the city's neon haze. His grandfather's call 2 weeks ago had been gruff, laced with that Midwestern stoicism. "Boy, this place is falling apart faster than a politician's promise. Get your ass back here before I keel over." Earl Harlan wasn't one for sentiment. He was a man forged in the Depression, widowed young, who'd raised Jack single-handed after his parents' car wreck on I-80 when Jack was 12. No tears, no therapy, just work, whiskey, and the unspoken pact that men didn't bend. They broke even. Jack wiped sweat from his brow, the air thick with the scent of gunpowder and decaying leaves, and trudged toward the house. Inside, the kitchen radio crackled with some evangelical firebrand railing against the sins of Sodom in our schools. But Earl had it tuned low, more white noise than gospel. "You hear that?" Earl grunted from his armchair, pipe smoke curling like a question mark. "World's gone to hell since Reagan." Jack forced a chuckle, pouring coffee black as tar into a chipped mug. "Ain't that the truth, Gramps?" He didn't mention the irony, the preacher's voice droning on about abominations while Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket with a text from Dennis. "Miss you already. Call when you land?" Simple words, but they anchored him, a lifeline in the undertow of this place where love like theirs was whispered about in church basements, not shouted from rooftops. Dennis Riley was the reason Jack had bolted from Willow Creek at 18. Wide-eyed and terrified after their first fumbling kiss behind the bleachers at homecoming. Dennis, with his easy laugh and forearms like coiled ropes from bartending at the Rusty Anchor in Chicago's Wrigleyville, had been Jack's anchor through art school dropout phases, dead-end mechanic gigs, and the quiet terror of coming out to a world that still clung to Norman Rockwell prints like they were scripture. They'd met again at a dive bar 2 years back, Jack nursing a beer after a brutal shift, Dennis slinging shots with that same crooked grin, and it was like no time had passed. 6 months later, they were shacked up in a walk-up on Addison Street, arguing over takeout Thai and making love like it was the only rebellion worth the risk. But rebellion had a price. Jack's family, cousins scattered across the county, aunts with pursed lips and uncles who'd fought in Nam, hadn't taken the news well when he'd brought Dennis home for Christmas last year. It started with sidelong glances over the ham, escalated to Bible verses slipped under his truck's windshield wiper, and culminated in Uncle Ray's slurred toast. To family, real family, blood and bone, not some fairy tale from the city. Jack had left that night, Dennis's hand tight in his, vowing never to look back. Until Earl's call. The old man didn't know about Dennis. Not the details. Anyway, Jack had kept that lock tight, like a rusted safe in the attic. Now, as Jack unpacked his duffel in the spare room upstairs, the floorboards groaning under his boots, he felt the weight of it all pressing down. The house smelled of mothballs and pipe tobacco. Photos on the mantel showing Earl in his army days, young and stern, arm around a woman Jack had never met, Grandma Harlan, dead before he could form memories. There was one picture that always gut-punched him. Earl and his best friend, Tommy, two kids in overalls grinning atop a haystack, arms slung casual-like around each other's shoulders. Tommy had vanished after high school, shipped off to Korea and never came back. Earl never spoke of him, but Jack had found letters once, tucked in a cigar box. Miss you more than words, brother. Stay safe. Downstairs, Earl's voice boomed up the stairs. Dinner's on. Venison stew. Shot that buck myself last fall. Jack descended, stomach rumbling despite the knot in his chest. They ate in silence at first, spoons scraping bowls, the only sound the wind rattling the shutters. Then Earl fixed him with those steel blue eyes, faded but sharp. You look like hell, boy. What's eatin' you in that big city? Lights too bright? Women too scarce? Jack nearly choked on a chunk of carrot. It's not, Gramps. It's complicated. He thought of Dennis's text again. The way his voice had cracked on their last call. This place is killing you slow, Jack. Come back soon. Complicated didn't cover it. The late-night fights with his own reflection. The fear that loving a man meant losing the only family he had left. Earl leaned back, wiping his mouth with a napkin. Life's always complicated. Your daddy learned that the hard way, thought he could outrun the bottle. Me? I just keep swinging. But you got that look, like Tommy did before he left. The name hung there, heavy as the envelope Jack spotted on the sideboard later that night. A plain white one addressed to Jackie Boy in Earl's spidery script, unsealed, as if waiting. He didn't open it then. Instead, he stepped onto the porch, dialing Dennis under a sky bruised purple with twilight. Hey, handsome. Dennis's voice came through, warm as bourbon. How's the prodigal son holding up? Like a house of cards in a hurricane. Jack leaned against the railing, staring at the silhouette of the barn. Miss you. This place. It's like stepping back into a bad dream. Dennis's laugh was soft, edged with worry. You'll fix it up. Make it yours again. And when you're done, we'll come back together. Show 'em what real strength looks like. A pause. Then quieter. I love you, Jack. Don't forget that. I won't. But as he hung up, the wind carried a distant howl. Coyotes. Or maybe just his doubts closing in. Little did he know, the real storm was just gathering force, one that would rip open old wounds and stitch new ones in their place. The next morning dawned brittle and cold, frost etching patterns on the kitchen window like accusatory fingers. Jack shoveled the drive while Earl tinkered in the garage, the old man's curses punctuating the scrape of metal on concrete. By noon, the first crack appeared, not in the foundation, but in the fragile truce Jack had built. Cousin Lila pulled up in her minivan, 3 kids tumbling out like puppies, her husband Marty trailing with a cooler of beers. Jackie, heard you were back. Thought we'd drop by. Make a family thing of it. Family thing. The words soured in Jack's mouth as Lila enveloped him in a hug that smelled of hairspray and pot roast. She was the closest thing he had to a sister, 5 years older, married young to Marty the millwright, popping out babies like it was her patriotic duty. They'd been thick as thieves growing up, stealing smokes from Uncle Ray's pack, whispering secrets under the quilt at family reunions. But last Christmas had carved a chasm. Lila's eyes had widened when Jack introduced Dennis, her smile freezing into something brittle. We love you, Jackie, but pray on it. Now, as the kids chased chickens across the yard and Marty cracked open a bud, Lila cornered him by the woodpile. You look good, Aunt. City life agreeing with you? Her voice was light, but her gaze flicked to his left hand. No ring. Thank God. Because what did rings mean in a world that still debated if they were legal? It's fine, Jack said, stacking logs with more force than necessary. Work steady. Dennis sends his regards. Lila's cheeks flushed pink, like she'd bitten into a tart apple. Dennis. Right. How's that going? The pause stretched, loaded with the unsaid. How's playing house with a man? Jack's jaw tightened. Better than ever. He's the best thing in my life. It was the truth. Fierce and unyielding, but saying it here felt like shouting into a gale. Marty wandered over then, clapping Jack on the back hard enough to jolt him. Heard you're fixing up the old man's spread. Good on ya. But seriously, Jack, word around town is you too. You know, he lowered his voice, glancing at the house. Folks talk. Church groups prayin' for ya. Praying for what? My soul to straighten out. Jack's laugh was bitter, bark-like. Marty shifted, uncomfortable, but Lila jumped in, her voice a pleading whisper. It's not like that, Jackie. We just worry. The Bible says, spare me the verses, Lil. He dropped the axe, the blade embedding in the chopping block with a thud. I'm gay. It's not a phase, not a sin, not up for debate. Dennis and I, we're building something real. You gonna stand with family, or against it? The air thickened, the kids' laughter a mocking counterpoint from the yard. Lila's eyes welled, but she didn't back down. Family means truth, Jack. And the truth is, this ain't natural. Not here. Not with Earl watching from that porch like a hawk. Earl, who'd been silent through it all, now cleared his throat from the doorway, pipe clenched in his teeth. Enough. Stew's cold. Eat before it turns to glue. But his eyes met Jack's, knowing, weary, and for the first time, Jack wondered if the old man saw more than he let on. That night, after Lila and Marty loaded up with Tupperware and strained goodbyes, Jack found the envelope again. His fingers trembled as he slid it open under the yellow bulb of his bedside lamp. Inside was a single sheet, Earl's handwriting looping like river bends. Jackie boy, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't mourn the shell, the man who taught you to shoot straight and stand tall. Mourn the secrets I buried deeper than Pa's old well. Tommy wasn't just a friend. He was my heart, the one who made the nights bearable when the world felt like a noose. We loved quiet like, in shadows, 'cause back then, love like ours got you beaten or worse. Korea took him, and I've carried that empty half my life. You think you're alone in this fight? You ain't. Blood don't lie, and neither does love. Tell your Dennis I said welcome to the family. Fight hard, boy. For both of us. Your Gramps, Earl. Jack's vision blurred, the paper crumpling in his fist. The hook had set, deep, barbed, pulling him into waters he'd never charted. But the real betrayal was just dawning. Lila's whispers to the pastor, the town's slow poison seeping in. And Dennis, miles away, waiting for a man who might not make it back whole. Dawn broke over Willow Creek like a reluctant confession, painting the horizon in streaks of rose and ash. Jack hadn't slept, the letter's words looping in his mind like a scratched record. Tommy wasn't just a friend. He was my heart. By the time he stumbled downstairs, coffee pot hissing on the stove, Earl was already at the table, nursing his own mug, eyes shadowed as if he'd been waiting. You read it, the old man stated, not a question. His voice was gravel, but there was a crack in it, fine as a hairline fracture in porcelain. Jack slid into the chair opposite, the letter heavy in his pocket like a talisman. Yeah. Gramps. Tommy? He couldn't say more, the name tasting like forbidden fruit. Earl's gaze drifted to the window, where frost clung to the panes like desperate fingers. He was everything good in a world gone sour. We'd sneak off to the river, skip stones and talk, till the stars wheeled overhead. Thought we had forever, till the draft notice came. A pause, long as a held breath. I never told a soul. Not your grandma. God rest her. She deserved better than my half-life. Buried it all when Tommy's telegram arrived. Purple heart pinned to a box of bones. Jack's throat tightened, the room shrinking around them. Why now? Why tell me? 'Cause I see it in you. Boy, the same fire, same fear. That fella on the phone last night, Dennis? He's your Tommy, ain't he? Earl's eyes sharpened, pinning Jack like a specimen. World's changed some, Obergefell and all that noise, but here, folks still clutch their pearls like it's 1952. Lila's been yap-pin to the preacher, stirrin' the pot. Figured you needed to know you ain't the first Harlan to buck the tide. The admission hung there, raw and revolutionary, shattering the myth of Earl Harlan as the unyielding patriarch. Jack reached across the table, gripping his grandfather's weathered hand, calloused from decades of plows and prayers unspoken. Thank you, he whispered, voice breaking. For this. For him. Earl squeezed back, brief as a spark. Don't thank me yet. Storm's comin'. Brace. He wasn't wrong. By afternoon, the Harlan farmstead buzzed with uninvited kin. Uncle Ray rolling up in his F-150, towing a trailer of supplies that smelled suspiciously of moonshine and malice. Ray was the black sheep turned sheepdog, a Korean vet like Earl but louder, meaner, with a gut from too many bar tabs and a mouth that ran like the Mississippi. Heard the prodigals back, he bellowed, clapping Jack into a bear hug that reeked of chew and regret. And bring in city sins with him. Lila had beaten him there, her minivan parked crooked by the pump house, kids corralled in the yard with a bag of licorice. She shot Jack an apologetic glance as Ray commandeered the kitchen, cracking beers and launching into his sermon. Now, Jackie, we all love ya, blood's thicker'n that river mud out back. But this lifestyle, is the devil's whisper. Boy, I seen it in Nam, fellers Tale, 'cause they couldn't face a real man's war. Jack's blood boiled, but he bit it back, glancing at Earl, who sat stone-faced, pipe unlit. Uncle, it's not a war. It's my life. Dennis is a good man, works hard, loves deep. Ain't no devil in that. Ray barked a laugh, foam flecking his mustache. Good man? Ha! Next you'll say it's natural, like God intended $2 runnin' the pasture. Bible's clear, Leviticus, Romans abomination, plain as day. He leaned in, voice dropping to a conspiratorial rumble. Lila here says you're headin' down that path full tilt. We're family, we stage an intervention. Get you right with the Lord before Earl croaks and leaves you to rot in hellfire. The word intervention landed like a sucker punch. Lila flushed, avoiding Jack's eyes, but Marty nodded along from the corner, clutching his bottle like a shield. The kids, peeking through the screen door, went quiet, sensing the shift like deer before thunder. Earl finally stirred, his chair scraping like a judge's gavel. Rayford Harlan, You shut your pie hole, for I shut it for you. The room froze. Earl rarely raised his voice, but when he did, he carried the weight of gravestones. You think you know sin? I buried my sins in a foxhole overseas. Watched friends bleed out for a flag that don't wave for everyone. Jack's fightin' his own war. Don't you make it harder. Ray's face purpled, veins bulging like rivers on a map. You defendin' this? After all we been through, church suppers, tithes, keepin' the Harlan name clean. Clean. Earl's laugh was a dry rasp, echoing off the rafters. Boy, the only dirt on this name is what we shovel ourselves. Now get off my land, for I call the sheriff. The standoff cracked like thin ice. Ray storming out with curses trailing like exhaust. Lila hurting the kids with tearful apologies. Marty mumbling something about just worried. Jack stood there, chest heaving, the letter burning a hole in his soul. Betrayal tasted like bile. Lila, his blood, choosing scripture over brotherhood. That evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the fields in blood orange, Jack escaped to the river, the same bend where Earl and Tommy had stolen their moments. He sat on a fallen log, skipping stones with vicious flicks, each plunk a punctuation to his rage. His phone buzzed. Dennis. Video call. The screen lit up with his partner's face, rumpled from a shift, green eyes crinkling with concern. Babe, you okay? Look like you wrestled a bear. Worse. Family ambush. Jack recounted it all, the barbs, the Bible, Earl's quiet thunder. Dennis listened, nodding, his silence a bomb. They're scared, Jack, of what you represent. Change they can't control. He leaned closer to the camera, voice dropping. But you're not alone. Remember that night in the bar? First time we danced? You in that stupid cowboy hat. Me spilling whiskey down your shirt? Felt like the whole world narrowed to us. Jack's laugh bubbled up. Unexpected. Yeah. Best spill ever. The memory softened the edges. Sweaty bodies in a crowded honky-tonk, hands finding waists, a kiss that tasted like freedom and folly. Promise me you'll come home soon, Dennis said, thumb tracing the screen like a caress. We'll face this together. Hell, I'll drive out there myself, charm the overalls off him. Don't tempt me. But as they talked into the dusk, weaving plans around the pain, Jack felt the first stirrings of resolve. Love wasn't a battlefield, it was the foxhole you dug together. Back at the house, Earl waited on the porch, a lantern flickering against the encroaching dark. Ray's a fool, but he's family. Blood don't wash off easy. Jack nodded, sinking beside him. What about Tommy's family? Did they ever know? Earl's pipe glowed like a firefly. Nah. His ma thought he died a hero. Easier lie than the truth. A beat. You tell Dennis yet? Not all of it. But I will. The stars emerged, pinpricks in the velvet sky, and for a moment, Willow Creek felt less like a cage and more like a crossroads. But crossroads have traffic, and the next day brought a semi, Pastor Hale's Buick gliding up the drive, black as a hearse, with Lila in the passenger seat like a reluctant accomplice. The intervention wasn't over, it was just reloading. Pastor Hale was Willow Creek's moral compass, a silver-haired bulldog in polyester suits who'd baptized Jack as a squalling infant and eulogized his parents with tears in his eyes. Now, he extended a hand that felt like damp fish. Jack, son. We're here to talk, heart to heart, as brothers in Christ. Inside, over weak tea and Earl's baleful stare from the corner, Hale launched his pitch. Repentance, counseling, a deliverance retreat in Springfield. God loves the sinner, Jack, but hates the sin. You can be made whole, find a nice girl, settle down like the Lord intended. Jack's temper frayed like old rope. Whole? I'm whole, Pastor. Dennis makes me better, not broken. You gonna tell Earl his love for Tommy was a phase too? The room iced over. Hale's face drained of color, Lila gasping like she'd been slapped. Earl straightened, slow as a waking bear. What did you say, boy? Jack's heart thundered. He hadn't meant to spill it, not like this. But the dam broke, the letter, the secrets, the stolen river nights. Words tumbled out, fierce and unfiltered, painting Earl's hidden life in strokes of longing and loss. Silence swallowed the kitchen, thick as chowder. Hale sputtered, crossing himself. Lila wept silently, hands clasped like manacles. Earl, though Earl rose, placing a hand on Jack's shoulder, steady as bedrock. Truth's out. Now what? The pastor bolted soon after, mumbling about prayer chains, leaving Lila to crumple in her chair. Jackie. Gramps, how could you hide this? Same way you hide your judgments. Girl, Earl snapped, softer than venom. Ain't no shame in lovin' true. Time you learned that. She fled too. Eventually, the Buick's taillights fading into the twilight. Jack and Earl sat in the wreckage, the air humming with aftershocks. You did good, boy, Earl murmured. Tommy'd be proud, but pride was a fragile shield. That night, Jack's phone lit up with voicemails, cousins decrying the Harlan curse, Ray vowing disinheritance, the church board calling for Earl's resignation from the deaconate. The betrayal deepened, roots twisting into the soil Jack had called home. He called Dennis at 2 a.m., voice raw. It's unraveling. All of it. Then unravel with me, Dennis replied, unshakable. I'm booking a flight. Be there by morning. As the line went dead, Jack stared at the letter, now creased and worn. The climax loomed, not in shouts, but in the quiet choice to stand. The Greyhound station in Peoria smelled of diesel and despair, a concrete bunker where dreams went to hibernate. Dennis stepped off the bus at 10 a.m. Sharp, duffel slung over one shoulder, his 6-foot frame cutting through the crowd like a lighthouse beam. Jack waited by the vending machines, nursing a Coke that had gone flat, his nerves jangling like loose change. When their eyes met, the world narrowed, Dennis's grin splitting wide, arms opening for a hug that crushed the air from Jack's lungs. Goddamn, I needed this, Jack muttered into Dennis's neck, inhaling the familiar scent of Irish Spring and faint bar smoke. Dennis pulled back, hands framing Jack's face, thumbs brushing stubble. You look like you aged a decade, Harlan. Let's fix that. His kiss was brief but branding. Right there in the terminal, a gauntlet thrown to the ghosts of Willow Creek. The drive back was a 2-hour ribbon of highway, cornfields blurring past like judgmental spectators. Dennis filled the cab with stories, tipsy regulars at the Anchor, a drag queen's epic lip sync to Sweet Caroline, drawing laughs from Jack that felt like exhaling after a dive. So, this letter, Dennis said finally, hand on Jack's thigh. Your Gramps was like us, more than like. He was us. Jack recounted the revelations, the family fray, the way Earl's confession had lit a fuse under decades of silence. Dennis listened, nodding, his silence eloquent as poetry. Brave old coot, he said at last. And you, spilling it in the thick of it? That's my cowboy. Pride warmed his voice, chasing the chill from Jack's bones. Earl was waiting on the porch when they pulled up, overalls streaked with grease, a shotgun propped casual against the rail, less threat, more talisman. He sized Dennis up with a squint, then extended a hand rough as sandpaper. Heard a lot about you, Riley. Welcome to the madhouse. Dennis shook it firm, unflinching. Pleasure, sir. Jack says you make a mean stew. Earl's chuckle rumbled low. Flattery'll get you seconds. Come on in. Lunch ain't cookin' itself. The meal was a tentative truce. Venison sandwiches on rye, potato salad tart with vinegar. The three of them circled at the scarred oak table. Earl grilled Dennis like a suspect. Chicago winters, family back in Boston. That time he'd fixed the truck's carburetor over FaceTime. Dennis parried with charm. Stories of his ma's clam chowder and the time he'd punched a homophobe at a Cubs game. Jack's the steady one, he said, winking. I'm just along for the ride. Steady. My ass, Earl snorted. Boy's been runnin' since he could walk. But you ground him. Like Tommy did me. The name slipped out easy. A stone skipping smooth over water. Dennis's eyes softened, and he raised his glass root beer, in deference to the old man. To groundings, then. And to Tommy's everywhere. They clinked, the sound of fragile bridge. For the first time, the Harlan kitchen felt less like a courtroom and more like hearth. But Willow Creek wasn't one for bridges. It preferred walls. By evening, the first stones flew, figuratively, at least. A pickup idled at the road's end, headlights slicing the dusk like accusations. Uncle Ray again, this time with reinforcements. 2 deacons from Hale's flock, Bibles tucked under arms like ammunition. They didn't approach, just sat there, engines rumbling a low threat, until Earl stepped out, shotgun in hand, not raised, but present. Tell him to scat. Boy, he called over his shoulder. Jack went, Dennis at his flank, the pair of them a united front against the night. Ray rolled down his window, face mottled as overripe tomato. Jackie, this circus ends now. Pastors Callan a town meetin'. Exposin the Harlan perversion. You and your friend best stay clear. Perversion. Jack's voice cracked like thunder. You mean love? The kind you wouldn't know if it bit you? Gramps told me about Tommy, how you shipped off together, how you knew and said nothing. That the perversion. Ray? Burying your brother while he bled. Ray recoiled, but his eyes hardened to flint. Tommy was a casualty of war. Not that. You're poisoning Earl's legacy, twistin' it queer. Lila's beside herself. Kids a-skin questions she can't answer. Dennis stepped forward then, voice calm as a confessor's. Mr. Harlan, with respect, your family's hurting 'cause they're scared. Scared of losin' Jack. Of changin'. But love ain't poison. It's the antidote. Let us show you. Ray's laugh was ugly, bark without bite. Show me? Boy, you ain't family. You're a phase. A mistake he'll regret when the devil comes collectin'. He gunned the engine, tires spitting gravel as he peeled away, the deacons trailing like hyenas. Back inside, Earl poured whiskeys, real ones this time, his hand steady despite the tremor Jack now noticed. Ray's always been a blowhard. But this deeper. Town's dividend, like the Jordan before Moses. Jack downed his shot, fire blooming in his chest. Then we fight. Together. The next days blurred into a siege. Anonymous notes pinned to the mailbox. Sodom burns. Tires slashed on Jack's truck. Whispers at the co-op turning to stares. Lila called once. Voice quavering. Jackie, please. Come to church, just talk. We can fix this. But her words rang hollow, laced with the betrayal of a sister who'd chosen conformity over kinship. Dennis proved his mettle, rolling up sleeves to mend fences, literal and otherwise. He and Jack spent mornings in the barn, welding gates while Earl watched from the loft, sharing war stories that veered into vulnerability. One afternoon, as thunderheads gathered, Dennis found the cigar box in the attic, Tommy's letters, yellowed missives of "I ache for your laugh and come home to me." He read them aloud to Jack by lantern light, voices intertwining like vines. "This is us," Dennis said, tracing faded ink. "Hidden, but here. And we're not hiding anymore." Their lovemaking that night was fierce, a reclamation, bodies slick with sweat under the quilt, whispers of mine and forever drowning the storm outside. Jack traced the scars on Dennis's knuckles, souvenirs from bar fights and broken bottles, and felt the depth of it. Not just desire, but devotion, the kind that withstood pitchforks and prayers. Yet the conflict crested on a Saturday, market day in town. Jack and Dennis loaded the truck with Earl's honey jars and squash, determined to show face. The square buzzed, booths hawking pies and quilts, fiddles whining from the gazebo, but eyes tracked them like hawks. Whispers slithered. "That's the queer Harlan boy. Brought his boyfriend." Pastor Hale held court by the fountain. Flock gathered tight. He spotted them, smile sharpening to a blade. "Jack, a word. Son." The crowd parted, a gauntlet of judgment. Dennis squeezed Jack's hand. "Go. I've got your back." And Jack approached, chin high. "Pastor," Hale's voice carried, oily with piety. "We've prayed for you, brother." The boards decided, Earl's off the rolls unless he repents this. Folly. And you stay away from our youth. We won't have your influence spreading. The words ignited something primal. Jack's fists clenched, vision tunneling. Influence? You mean truth? Gramps loved a man. Deep, real, and you'd erase that? Call it folly? His voice rose, echoing off the courthouse bricks. Tommy Harlan died for your freedoms, and you spit on his memory. Gasps rippled, heads turning. Lila emerged from the throng, face ashen, Marty at her elbow. "Jackie, stop. No." He whirled on her, betrayal a live wire. "You started this, Lil, your whispers, your worry. You betrayed us all for what? A seat in heaven that don't exist." She recoiled, tears carving tracks through powder. But before Hale could retort, a new voice cut through. Earl, hobbling from his truck, cane thumping like a heartbeat. "Enough of this circus." He thrust the letter, Jack's copy, now public, at Hale, words spilling like buckshot. Tommy's love, the shadows, the silence broken. The square fell silent, a collective inhale. Hale stammered, flock fracturing, some nodding, others fleeing. Lila sank to her knees, sobbing. Ray, lurking at the edge, turned away, shoulders slumped. In the hush, Earl met Jack's eyes, pride fierce as a father's. "Told you, boy. Fight hard." But victory tasted bittersweet. The chasm yawned wider, wounds festering. As they drove home, Dennis's arm around him, Jack wondered if silence could ever truly be silenced, or if some betrayal scarred eternal. The fallout from the square settled over Willow Creek like fallout from a nuke. Slow, insidious, irradiating every corner. Church attendance dipped, pews echoing with absences. The co-op's cash register rang quieter when Jack walked in for nails and twine. Earl's phone jangled with calls. Half condemnations, half quiet amens from old-timers who'd known Tommy's laugh too well. Folks been carryin' their own ghosts, he told Jack over breakfast, flipping eggs with a spatula scarred from 50 years. Yours just gave em permission to breathe. Jack nodded, but the weight pressed heavier. Dennis had extended his stay, calling in favors at the bar, but the city pulled shifts unpaid. Friends texting you okay out there? Each night, as they lay tangled in the narrow bed, Jack traced Dennis's ribs, memorizing the map of him against the dread of goodbye. What if it's not enough? He whispered once, moon slanting through the curtains like a blade. Dennis's fingers stilled in his hair. Enough for what? Them? Screw 'em. Enough's us here. Now. Whole. His kiss sealed it, slow and sacrament, but doubt lingered like smoke. The real fracture came midweek, in the form of Lila's midnight knock, soft, insistent, the screen door creaking like a confessor's hinge. Jack answered in boxers and a thermal, Dennis stirring behind him. She stood on the porch, bundled in a parka too big for her frame, eyes red-rimmed as a winter dawn. Can I talk? He stepped aside, waving her in. The kitchen clock ticked accusatory. Earl long Abed. Dennis brewed tea chamomile, soothing as a truce while Lila perched on a stool, twisting her hands. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she started, voice a thread. Ray pushed, Hale preached, and I thought prayer could fix you. Fix us. Fix. Jack's laugh was hollow, echoing off the tiles. Lil, you sold me out. Told tales to the pastor, rallied the troops. That's not worry, that's war. She flinched, tears spilling. I was scared, Jackie. For the kids, what they'd hear, what they'd become. Ma raised us on proverbs, Dad on duty. Gay, that was city sickness, not our blood. A sob hitched. But Gramps, Tommy, shattered me. If he could love like that and still be good. Dennis slid the mug her way, his touch gentle. He was good, Lila. And so's Jack. Question is, are you? She looked up, searching his face, open, unjudging, and something cracked. I betrayed you. My little brother, the one I taught to ride bikes and sneak cookies. For what? A god who damn love. She reached for Jack's hand, tentative. Forgive me, please. The plea hung, raw as flayed skin. Jack's chest ached, anger warring with the girl who'd bandaged his scraped knees, who'd whispered it'll be okay at their parents' funeral. He pulled her into a hug, bones pressing sharp through her coat. Family forgives, right? But no more whispers. Stand with us, or step aside. She nodded into his shoulder, vows mumbled like prayers. When she left, dawn graying the sky, Dennis wrapped arms around Jack from behind. That was mercy, Harlan. Proud of you. Mercy, though, was a double-edged blade. Ray's response came swift, a scrawled note shoved under the door at noon. You've poisoned her too. Disowned. Don't darken my door. The words gutted Jack, a fresh betrayal slicing old ties. He crumpled it, tossing it into the stove's maw, flames devouring the ink like absolution. Dennis saw the storm in his eyes. Drive, he said simply, keys jangling. They took the river road, windows down, wind whipping confessions from the pines. At the bend, Tommy's Bend, they parked, boots crunching gravel to the water's edge. Dennis pulled a thermos of whiskey-laced coffee, passing it over as they sat on the log, legs dangling like kids. "Remember our first road trip?" Dennis asked, voice soft over the rush. "That motel in Indiana, bed sagged in like a hammock. You frettin' about tires." Jack smiled faint. "You sang off-key, till I shut you up. Best shutdown ever." Dennis leaned in, forehead to Jack's. "This Ray. The town, its noise. We're the signal." They kissed there, unhurried, the river murmuring approval. But passion crested urgent, hands roaming under flannel, breaths mingling with the mist. On that log, under a canopy of October gold, they reclaimed each other, fierce, tender, a fuck you to the fates. Jack arched into Dennis's grip, gasps lost to the current, release crashing like waves on hidden rocks. After, spent and sated, they lay back, shirts rucked up, staring at clouds scudding like refugees. "Marry me," Dennis said sudden, casual as commenting on the weather. Jack bolted upright, heart slamming. "What? You heard me." Dennis propped on an elbow, eyes graveled with gold. "Not for them, for us. Rings, vows, the whole American dream. Say yes, cowboy." Tears pricked, hot and unbidden. "Yes. God, yes." Laughter bubbled, mingled with sobs, as they sealed it with spit and promise. No ring yet, but the bond ironclad. The proposal fueled the fire, but climax brewed darker. Friday brought the town hall, Hale's emergency session, to address the Harlan scandal. Flyers plastered on poles like wanted posters. Earl insisted they go. "Can't run from shadows. Boy. Face 'em." The VFW hall reeked of stale beer and varnish. Folding chairs scraped into rows, air thick with murmurs. 50 faces turned as Jack, Dennis, and Earl entered, Hale at the podium, Ray flanking him like a sentinel. Lila sat midway, head high, Marty absent. The pastor cleared his throat, voice booming through the mic. "Brothers and sisters, we gather to protect our community from moral decay. The Harlan revelations, tragic, yes, but a warning. We must stand firm against this affliction." Applause rippled, but fractures showed, nods warring with shifts, eyes downcast. Ray took the stand next, jowls quivering. "My father's a legend, fought wars, fed families. Now he shames us, defending sodomy like it's apple pie. Jack's led him astray, that Dennis pullin' strings. We vote, shun the farm, boycott the co-op, till they repent." The motion carried 30 ayes, 20 nays, Lila's abstention a silent scream. Jack's blood roared, vision spotting. Dennis's hand found his under the table, anchor in the gale. Earl rose then, cane thumping, voice a cannonade. "You fools," he thundered, letter aloft like Moses' tablets. "You think shame's mine? I love Tommy, pure, God-given, and buried it to spare your brittle hearts. Jack loves true, same as me. You shun us? You shun grace." He read then, haltingly, "My heart. Forever." The hall hushed, words weaving a spell, tears tracing paths down weathered cheeks. Hale sputtered, but the tide turned, whispers of "I knew Tommy. He was kind," until a farmer stood. "Enough. Let the boy be." Murmurs swelled to roar, the vote unraveling like cheap yarn. Ray lunged, face twisted. You're dead to me, old man. All of ya. He stormed out, door slamming like judgment. In the chaos, Lila found them, hugging Earl fierce. I'm with you, Gramps. All the way. Outside, under sodium lamps buzzing like fireflies, Jack pulled Dennis close, the proposal's glow undimmed. We did it, he breathed. But victory's shadow loomed. Earl collapsed that night, chest clutching, ambulance wailing into the dark. At the ER in Peoria, monitors beeping dirge, the old man gripped Jack's hand. Proud of you both. Tell Tommy. I'm coming to. He slipped away at 3:17 a.m., peaceful as a sigh, leaving silence vast as the plains. The funeral was a study in schisms, Willow Creek's Baptist chapel packed to the rafters, but the pews segregated like a bad dream. Ray and his faction on the left, stiff in starched collars, glares sharp as tacks. Lila and the defectors on the right, faces soft with contrition. Jack and Dennis in the front row, hands clasped under the hymnal, a quiet defiance. Pastor Hale officiated, voice strained, his eulogy skirting Tommy like a pothole. Earl Harlan was a pillar, farmer, veteran, father to us all. Let us remember his faith, not his failings. Jack's jaw clenched, Dennis's thumb circling soothing circles on his knuckle. The betrayal lingered, Hale's half-truths a final twist of the knife, but Earl's letter, photocopied and passed hand to hand after the haul, had sown seeds. Whispers during the potluck afterward, under the fellowship hall's fluorescent hum, heard about Tommy. Makes you think. Old widows pressed pies into Jack's hands, murmuring your Gramps was a good man, all the way through. Ray skipped the graveside, his absence a gaping wound, but Lila stayed, arm linked with Jack's as they lowered the pine box into Illinois clay. He forgave me, you know, she said, voice thick. Last week. Slipped me a note. Families for fixin'. Not fightin'. I'll do better, Jackie. For him, he hugged her, the scent of her Chanel No. 5 mingling with earth and eulogy. Start by meeting Dennis proper. He's family now, she did, over weak coffee by the fresh mound, awkward laughs bridging the gulf. Dennis charmed with tales of Boston blizzards, drawing a tentative smile. You make my brother happy, she admitted. That's enough for me. The farm felt hollow post-burial, echoes in the halls, Earl's pipe on the mantel a ghost sentinel. Jack and Dennis stayed on, sorting papers, mending what they could. One evening, rifling the attic, they unearthed a trunk, Tommy's dog tags, a faded photo of 2 soldiers arm in arm under cherry blossoms, Earl's smile unguarded. Tucked inside, another letter, Tommy's hand, looping elegant. Earl, my anchor. If I don't make it, know you were my forever. Love don't die, it waits. Jack traced the words, tears salting the ink. He knew. Dennis nodded, pulling him close. And now we know. Let's honor it, live loud. They did, in small revolutions. A commitment ceremony in the barn. June come gentle, hay bales for pews. Lila officiating with a stole borrowed from a progressive cousin in Chicago. 50 attended, town holdouts, city friends, a fiddler scraping Danny Boy into dusk. Vows exchanged under string lights. Jack's you're my river, steady and wild. Dennis's my harbor, come hell or high water. Rings, simple gold bands, slipped on with cheers, sealing the pact. Ray didn't come, but a card arrived weeks later, heard the news. Maybe time heals. Are a crack, Not a chasm, progress in pencil scrawl. Months blurred into harvest gold, the farm thriving under their hands. Dennis tending bees, Jack welding solar panels for the roof, a B&B sign swinging whimsical by the drive. Willow Creek shifted slow. Hale retired amid murmurs. A new pastor preaching love thy neighbor. Period. Lila visited Sundays. Kids romping with tales of Uncle Dennis's honey wars. One crisp October eve, a year to the day since the letter, Jack and Dennis drove to the river. They scattered Earl's ashes, pinch by pinch, into the current, Tommy's tags glinting on a chain around Jack's neck. To forever, Dennis toasted with whiskey from the thermos. Jack leaned into him, the water singing low. And to silencing the mocks, betrayal's scars faded. Not gone, reminders etched like frost on glass, but love proved the thaw. In America's heartland, where winds whispered old sins, they'd carved a new gospel, human, flawed, unyieldingly true. The critics fell quiet, not from defeat, but donning a letter's legacy, rippling outward like stones in the stream. And in the quiet nights, arms entwined, Jack dreamed not of ghosts, but horizons endless, shared, theirs.